All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. And as people enter the room, we're just going to go ahead and let them in. But hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Diaz, and I'm the Certified Welcoming Manager at Welcoming America. And I'm joined by my colleagues, Melissa Bertolo, the Certified Welcoming Senior Director, and Madhya Chowdhury, Certified Welcoming Coordinator. And welcome to today's webinar titled Certified Welcoming 101 webinar series. As Welcoming America's Certified Welcoming Program enters a new era under the Welcoming Standard 2.0, we are offering a three-part series for localities interested in becoming certified welcoming. Today, you will learn about the framework areas of the Welcoming Standard, the STAR designation system, the certification process, timeline, and outcomes, and you will leave with the knowledge of the commitment and work it takes to have your community be the next certified welcoming place. We welcome you to join us for our next two webinars on the series, the Welcoming Standard Mini Bootcamp, hosted May 31st at 12 p.m. Eastern, and open office hours June 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Before we begin, I would like to share a few housekeeping items. Please keep your microphone muted to limit some feedback, noise, and interruptions. If you have a question, please feel free to use the chat feature to enter it or raise your hand. We will respond to as many questions as possible during the Q&A portion at the end, but if you have a clarifying question, we may also get to it during the presentation itself. This webinar is also being recorded, and as a registrant, you'll receive a link to the recording in the next few days. Welcoming America is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that leads a movement of inclusive communities becoming more prosperous by ensuring everyone belongs. We value that all people, including immigrants, are valued contributors and vital to the success of our communities and shared future. We're well known for our Welcoming Network, where we have over 320 members from both the local government and nonprofit sector. We work with them to develop the roadmap they need to create welcoming policies and share new approaches to inclusion to create an environment where everyone can truly thrive. As we move into our presentation today, I want to share a little bit about our member benefits as we see the network and certified welcoming as reinforcing programs. Becoming a member of our Welcoming Network comes with many benefits. You have access to expert coaching and strategy sessions that are tailored to your specific community's needs. You have access to member-only webinars, calls, and resources. You may receive discounts to Welcoming America conferences, such as the Welcoming Interactive that we host every spring. And I'm delighted to see a lot of familiar names that we got to meet at the Welcoming Interactive. So thank you for being a part of this webinar. And through the program, you'll also have access through the programs you have access to through your membership. They will help you meet the criteria in the Welcoming Standard. For example, if you need help with language access criteria in the standard, we will direct you to our language access coaching sessions that are now available. And as a member benefit, you also receive a discount to programs that are offered at Welcoming America, like Certified Welcoming, which my colleague Melissa will continue discussing with you today.
Thank you, Jenny. So as we get started, I'd like to take a moment and share how we developed the Welcoming Standard and our certification program here at Welcoming America. As Jenny mentioned, we are a membership-based organization, and we had heard from our members, perhaps some of you, about the need to create a roadmap for welcoming and immigrant inclusion work. Additionally, we heard about a desire to be able to affirm one's commitment to the work beyond words, and so in action. The Welcoming Standard and Certified Welcoming aim to do just that. We initially launched our Certified Welcoming program in 2017, and over the past 2 years, we've been updating the Welcoming Standard and our Certified Welcoming program. So at Welcoming America, we recognize that this work, the work of welcoming and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, requires constant learning and growth, and we have a commitment to support learning and change. And with that, we've made a commitment to reopen the Welcoming Standard every 5 years to reflect on our learnings and consider new research. We decided to reopen the standard at the end of 2020 to ensure that we applied our learnings from the COVID-19 pandemic and the racial justice movement occurring across the country. So over a 2-year process, we took knowledge from our audits and certifications. We also solicited feedback from national experts, from policy think tanks to our network members, as well as the public at large. And we then field tested the updated standard in 3 communities. And this has allowed us to ensure that the standard continues to be a national benchmark for good practice of immigrant inclusion. So the welcoming standard is the backbone to the certified welcoming program. It lays out the policies, practices, and programs that are expected to be in place in a welcoming community. The standard has 7 different framework areas. So there's government and community leadership, and this recognizes that welcoming communities have the infrastructure in place to support immigrant participation, inclusion, and equity. There's equitable access, which is ensuring that community services and opportunities are available to all residents, including immigrants. Civic engagement is working to ensure that all residents can fully participate in civic life by increasing access to leadership and democratic spaces. Connected communities, which I think is the framework area that Welcoming America's work is most commonly recognized with, since it's focused on building connections, trust, and authentic relationships between residents. However, it's the expectation that it's not just individuals, but also community institutions are working and resourcing these types of programs as well. So the local government, businesses, faith communities, and nonprofits are also creating opportunities and spaces for immigrant and non-immigrant residents to have constructive interactions, develop relationships, and deepen their understanding of one another. The education framework area is looking to ensure that all students from early childhood through adulthood have the support they need to succeed in school and the education they need to succeed in the workforce. There's economic development, which is really thinking about how everyone can participate fully in the economy. Workforce and economic development infrastructure are addressing the priorities and needs of immigrant residents and immigrant job seekers. And finally, the Safe Communities Framework area, which is working to foster trust and build relationships between residents, including newcomers and local law enforcement and other safety agencies. So within all 7 of these framework areas, there are then criteria laid out, and we really see the welcoming standard as this roadmap to ensure that you have a place to start and continue to move the work forward. So along with updating the welcoming standard, we have updated our certification system itself. And we have heard from a lot of communities that they were interested in pursuing certification, but that it felt too overwhelming for them to get started. And honestly, I can really understand how this might feel, because with our previous standard, we had 45 core criteria and another 60 that were additional. And so really determining, how do we get started? What does this mean for us? How do we prioritize some of these items? We set out then on updating our certification system to have a clearer roadmap on where to start, and then also an opportunity to recognize and celebrate achievements along that journey. So our updated certification system provides a STAR designation based on the criteria met in the welcoming standard. But I want to assure everybody that far from being a rating system, the certified welcoming stars are really to ensure that all cities, towns, and counties have a chance to achieve the designation of certified welcoming, while also providing pathways to advance the welcoming work. So it's just like the Michelin star system for restaurants, we see that 1-star communities are incredibly committed and doing exceptional work. Just to be a 1-star certified welcoming community does take just as much effort for many places as succeeding in other areas as well. And I want to recognize that, some of you might begin to feel a little bit pressure to be certified at the highest designation. And whether that's, an internal push for all of our A+ students, or also maybe some external advocacy of others, we do encourage you to think about how the journey doesn't end with the star, but that it can and should continue. So certification is here to help you chart that course. And one of the things that I want to share with you, and we'll put this in the chat, is that we have a pre-assessment as well that will help you decide which star designation is right for you. And we really recommend taking this pre-assessment, and would be happy to schedule a one-on-one call with anyone to discuss your results if you would like. So earning more stars does demonstrate a commitment, but I want to acknowledge also that sometimes the 5-star designation might feel a little bit more aspirational than where places are currently, and it's designed really to ensure that people are continuing to advance their work forward. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Madia, now, who's going to share more information about the process to become certified.
Thank you, Melissa. Before I get into the step-by-step certification process, I wanted to talk about the application and onboarding. So certification is not possible without the work of community partners, but because the certificate resides with the local government, we require them to be the lead applicant. We encourage and expect community partners to be involved in the certification process, and they can be part of the onboarding if the local government so chooses. After we receive the application and confirm the local government is the applicant, I'll send some initial materials, including a contract outlining details of the process and an invoice. And in terms of the fees, they are according to membership with the Welcoming Network. So for non-members, any STAR certification is $12,000. And for members, a 1-star certification is a member benefit for core and premium. And if you're currently a general member, you can actually get this member benefit now, but will be invoiced for core or premium next year. And for members, 2 to 5-star certification is $9,000. So following the contract and invoice, typically there would be an onboarding call, but this webinar will replace that call for everyone who's here today. Those who have applied already will receive their contract and invoice soon. Then there's a 30-minute intake interview where we ask a few questions about the local government's jurisdiction and additional external policy impacts. After this, I'll get you set up in our certified welcoming portal, which is the website through which we will begin the certification process. Now I'll go into the step-by-step certification process once an application is submitted and onboarding is complete. So the first step is the self-assessment, during which localities gather and submit evidence and information to demonstrate compliance with the welcoming standard. The self-assessment is completed through an online portal at portal.certifiedwelcoming.org. The indicators for the desired STAR designation will be listed, and localities will describe and upload evidence for each indicator. You can invite others from your team to join you on the portal and submit evidence as well. Evidence is required to show compliance with the welcoming standard, and this might be in the form of a flyer, policy, presentation information, or a website. I do want to note that if a website is provided as evidence, at least one additional piece of evidence is required. And the timeline to complete the self-assessment is anywhere from 2 to 6 months, depending on the STAR designation that you're seeking. And after the self-assessment is complete, the certification team will review the evidence and mark compliance with different indicators in the standard. And during this stage, the certification team may ask for additional evidence or flag items for the audit. We conduct a thorough initial research based on the self-assessment you complete and also conduct a media scan. The next step is the audit, which is a series of interviews with stakeholders, including community leaders, government employees, and representatives from community-based organizations. The audit serves as a step to gain more insight into the locality's inclusion efforts, learn highlights, and understand the landscape and context of the work. The audit length varies, again, depending on STAR designation. For 1-star, it's a 1-day virtual audit. And for localities applying for 2 to 5 stars, the audits will be in person and they'll vary in length from 2 to 3 days. We then take what we learned from the analysis of the self-assessment and the audit to produce a detailed final report. This report will include our findings, including compliance with the welcoming standard, as well as local strengths and opportunities for growth. The report provides communities with a roadmap for identifying priorities and next steps to continuously improve the work. So the certification process is rigorous, but it's not entirely pass or fail, meaning that if you don't meet all of the indicators for the STAR designation you're seeking, you have the opportunity to become fully compliant by submitting additional evidence within 6 months. Alternatively, you could be certified at a STAR designation where you were fully compliant with the indicators. I'm going to give an example now, and I recognize that it's a little bit complicated, so please don't hesitate to ask questions. If you're seeking the 2-star designation and our analysis finds you compliant with all of the 1-star criteria, but not all of the 2-star designation, you could 1, receive your 1-star certificate, or 2, within 6 months, submit evidence of the non-compliant item for 2-star and become 2-star certified. You can also get support from your membership with Welcoming America. You can get guidance from your regional manager, attend workshops, and decide up to which star you're aiming for after the report. The last step is the certificate and announcement. Once compliant with all of the criteria for the STAR designation, local governments receive their certificate and coordinate an announcement. We encourage people to celebrate their accomplishments, and Welcoming America communication staff will be there to provide additional support to amplify the achievement, including a press release, a quote from Welcoming America, and branded marketing materials to use. Your certification will be valid for 4 years. And in order to maintain your status as certified welcoming, you will have to be recertified. The process to renew your locality certification is similar to the initial process, with submitting evidence, an audit, and a report. I will now pass it back to Melissa to discuss the benefits of becoming certified welcoming.
Great, thanks, Maria. And I just want to organize, there are a couple of questions in the chat, and we will get to all of those at the end. We'll finish wrapping up this presentation and then definitely answer your questions there, because I think some of them are really interesting for us to consider. So one of the most common questions we get with certified welcoming is, why should my locality seek certification? And I think this is a really valid question. What is your return on investment for going through this program and earning this designation? So as mentioned previously, the standard was developed to provide a common agenda and national benchmarks for what it means to be a welcoming community. So certified welcoming provides the opportunity to motivate communities to go above and beyond by recognizing and rewarding them with the designation and seal of being certified welcoming. So we've had some places seek certification for the prestige of being certified. This allows them to use their designation in a way that might attract attention to their locality. So for example, we've seen international student offices at universities using the designation as part of their recruitment efforts. And we've also seen economic development agencies using it to promote their locality to attract businesses by demonstrating, hey, we've been through this review. You should, bring your company and base it in our city because we're a certified welcoming place. And then we've also seen some places have benefits from grant awards being provided to certified localities. So really thinking about, how does this leverage the work that you're already doing by lifting it up nationally as well. And then I want to, also go into the fact that for many places, the seal, the designation, the prestige is often not the motivating factor. A lot of places tend to be really motivated by the process itself. And so by the opportunity to, have a third party come and review and benchmark your work against a national standard is the outcome that many find rewarding and helpful as well. And so, as Maria mentioned, the process can take anywhere from 6 months to about 1.5 years. And during that entire amount of time, the report that is provided back to you and your own work of gathering the self-assessment, reaching out to stakeholders, can really provide this opportunity to identify opportunities for improvement and also assist with prioritizing those next steps. And then finally, I just want to mention also that certification can be a tool to hold local governments accountable. So particularly during times of administration change. We've had places seek certification because they knew their mayor was going to term out, and they wanted to have a way to ensure that the next administration would continue to carry the torch and would continue to prioritize this work. So with the fact that, in order to maintain the designation of being certified, you have to go through this process every 4 years. And so there's that real opportunity to think about, how do we ensure that this work, particularly if it was maybe championed by a certain elected official, can continue on and be institutionalized in the local government. And so another major outcome, I think, of certified welcoming, and one that we've really seen with all of the places that we've had become certified, is the fact that it does accelerate change in your community. So of those places that we've been certified or have are still in the process, one of the things that we found is that almost 3/4 of them have improved their language access work. And of that, more than half of them are improving their emergency notification systems and their language access trainings, because these are indicators in the standard. And then we have come and assessed, the language access work. There's been needing to have some improvements. And so those places that are seeking certification are then able to use that to really leverage the work that's being done by their local government and move it forward. Some of the other areas of improvement is around community planning. So, around 40% of our places have, as a result of going through certification, have begun to really reassess their own goal setting, who's being involved, who are those stakeholders, right? Making sure that immigrants and non-immigrant residents are participating in that community planning, that there's multiple engagement opportunities. And so that's been an outcome of some of the places as well. And then the last area is around safety or safe communities. And so recognizing, safe communities is more than law enforcement, right? That there's a lot of different ways to ensure that we have a safe community. And so some of that has been training. So the indicator from our former standard was around ensuring that safety agencies such as law enforcement, but fire, EMS, code enforcement, have training on working with diverse populations, including immigrants. And so we've, for those places that have become certified, this is often an area where they had to do some additional work in order to achieve the designation. And then my favorite, because I'm a big nerd, is code enforcement, also in the safe communities area, and really thinking how important code enforcement is, and is often an area, honestly, that hasn't typically been included in some of the immigrant inclusion and welcoming work in a lot of places. And so being able to build that relationship between perhaps an Office of Immigrant Affairs and the code enforcement, and ensure that residents, have information about different types of code, whether that be housing or health or fire code. And then also working with those agencies, with those code enforcement offices, to ensure that they have the tools and understand some of the cultural differences that might be coming with people when they're, now required to have an American lawn, those types of things. So for the next slide, I wanted to share a few quotes about certified welcoming. And this one here is from the mayor of Portland, Maine, Mayor Kate Snyder. And what I really appreciate about this quote is her statement that while we celebrate the collective achievements of our community in gaining this recognition, we also realize that it is merely an affirmation that we are on the right track, and that there is more work to be done to ensure that everyone here feels included and connected. And I think this is really important to acknowledge that certification is not checking a box, or that the work ends when you're certified. There's always more work to do, and there's always ways to improve and go deeper. And we hope that certification is part of the community's journey, but we recognize that it's not the whole journey, and that there's constant improvement and learnings to do. And so I really appreciate this quote, as I think it encapsulates that really well. And the next quote that we have is from my hometown of Dayton, Ohio. So what I appreciate this one from Commissioner Matt Joseph is that he says it strengthened their commitment to both welcoming and the bonds to the city itself. And he's talking about the community partners. So again, certified welcoming requires the local government to be the lead applicant, and they're the one that holds the certificate, but this work cannot be done unless it's in partnership with other organizations and stakeholders. And so I think this aspect of recognizing that there's this opportunity to build and strengthen that relationship with the city going through certified welcoming is really important as well. Just want to share our list of places that we have certified currently. And so we have 18 places that are certified. And these are all places that were certified under our 1.0 program. This is now our relaunch, and we're really excited about beginning to certify places under 2.0. And so we have 6 localities that are currently working on certification. 3 of these are our pilot sites for the updated standard. And then there's 3 that were still under 1.0 that are, as Madia had mentioned, we have this opportunity to have additional evidence being submitted. And so that's the phase that some of those folks are in as well. And with that, we're going to share a little video. For those of you that were at the interactive, you might have seen this already, but really love this little animated video that really just kind of summarizes the process of certified welcoming.
And you'll have to bear with me as just to ensure that the sound is working.
Take a moment to picture the ideal community where newcomers and longtime neighbors work together and celebrate their diversity, a place where belonging is woven into the very fabric of society. Americans from large cities to small towns are united in the belief that inclusive communities don't have to remain just an ideal, but can be constructed to reality of a more welcoming America. We believe many have the desire to embark on transforming their communities, but may not know where to start. That's why we've developed the Welcoming Standard and Certified Welcoming Program. The Welcoming Standard is a roadmap that communities can use on their journey toward becoming more inclusive. Certified Welcoming enables your community to earn 1 of 5-star designations that you can use to chart your course and promote your community as a welcoming place. Based on a self-assessment, research, and series of interviews, we'll identify your strengths and provide guidance on areas to improve. Join us in building a more welcoming America.
Oh.
Great. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah.
With that, we're excited to invite you to apply to become certified welcoming if you haven't already, and are looking forward to, working with you as you go through this certification process. I think we'll, take a lot of time for questions. I know that there's lots of folks on this call who may have already submitted their application and are really serious about, what's next for them in this journey. So really happy to take those questions. I'm going to go ahead and answer some of these that came into the chat that I think might be a little bit conversational. But so Rayshana has asked a question, really thinking about, for cities that have the enforcement authority, whether that be housing discrimination or employment discrimination or public accommodations, that they have that authority to investigate. And so if there is a discrimination investigation and a person is upset that it didn't go their way, how involved would we be in investigating a closed case of no finding if that person complained via our complaint system? This is probably really a case basis, right? So first of all, I just want to explain to folks that we have a complaint system as one of the mechanisms to hold localities accountable, right? So that there's an expectation to maintain compliance with the welcoming standard. So we've done, our review, you received your certificate, and then, we're not really checking to make sure that you're certified or that you're maintaining your compliance until that recertification process. We do some light monitoring of, Google News alerts and other ways that we might identify perhaps like a critical incident, where maybe, now all of a sudden you have signed perhaps like a 287G agreement as an example, right? Where you're now like doing some heavy cooperation with ICE. We would begin an investigation on our own, but we also have this complaint process because many times it's the folks who live in a community and are there working with their local government every day who are going to be aware of perhaps something coming out of compliance. So someone might file a complaint. In this case, our complaint process is really focused on, first of all, determining whether or not this case has any merit. Is it something that is in the standard, or perhaps it's not in the standard? So if it's something that's not in the standard, someone has, a concern, and it's not in the standard, we're not going to do anything with that, unfortunately, right? Like we can only hold places accountable to what is in the standard. And so there is an indicator in there about making statements against, not just, there's another question in the chat here about, well, what if is it just for national origin as your protected class, or are we looking at other types of protected classes as well? And so we do list all of the protected classes. If the statement, I'd have to go and look at the standard again to like pop that in the chat, but I just want you to know that we are considering protected classes in a variety of ways. And so to wrap up answering this question is, I think it would really depend on what the complaint was about, and we then the process to investigate a complaint is that we would, if we think it might be something that, has merits, if it's in the standard, we have a pretty thorough investigation process where we would then interview stakeholders and determine whether or not the locality is out of compliance. I think that there's, back to this question about whether or not we would become involved in a case that's already closed. Like we would not have any really type of involvement in your investigations or your cases as well. So I hope I answered that question sufficiently. I think it is, it's a lot that we just shared all there. And then there's this question about education and the educational system, if it's not under the city's jurisdiction as well. So there are instances within the standard, while the local government is required to be the lead applicant, there are sometimes some expectations to still have the other indicators or criteria in the standard being met by agencies that are not under the jurisdiction of the local government. And part of this is that that star designation structure as well. So there will be some like more regional aspects in a higher star level. Some of the criteria as well could be met by like a nonprofit partner. And so it really depends, what that relationship might look like and who is doing that work. But just to acknowledge that, yes, school districts are often not under the jurisdiction of the local government, and yet they are still part of of the standard. And I think in many ways, because of how school is so important, and it does vary across the government or across the United States as far as who has the authority of the local school districts. There are ways to require it to be the school district, or ways to have a local nonprofit partner step in and do some of that work as well. And then, is it realistic to seek the 5-star certification off the bat, or is that more aspirational in nature, is a question as well. So really great question. I think that the 5-star certification is really, I would love to see some places certified at it. I think it's going to take places a lot of time, quite honestly, in order to achieve that. We have in some ways modeled our starred system off of Lead for Cities. If some of you are familiar with that, their program has been around for a little over 10 years. They have like a bronze to platinum type, and they have only had their first platinum locality a couple of years ago. So I just want to recognize it's a lot of work. We really set up our new standard and certification system to help people chart that course, to identify what they need to do next in order to achieve that. And that is which so it is aspirational. I don't want to say that you can't do it. And then again, we have that quiz that'll pop into the chat again for you all to help really identify which STAR designation might be best for you. Has so many good questions in here. So excited about all of these. And also, I think there's also a few coming in on the chat.
Yeah, so I can take one from the chat, and also the quiz that Melissa was talking about, we have put it into the chat earlier. We'll put it again to the chat in a little bit, and then we will also include the chat, the recording of this webinar, and the video in your follow-up email so that you have all of the links available to you as well. And so one of the questions is based on the presentation. Certification is a local government community project. Can we share examples of how other cities work on the project together with the community? Is there an MOU? What's the engagement? How does the community submit evidence? And does each framework have a checklist to complete? So yes, each framework does have criteria that belong to it based on your STAR designation that you're seeking. So they're all sectioned off in a very beautifully clean and organized way to keep track of. I am not sure if anyone has done an MOU with their community engagement. What we mostly hear and see is that they create like a working group, and through that working group, they come together to work on the criteria together to either, send out emails to community partners or city departments, county departments, and say, hey, we're going through this process. We're seeking certification. It asks us for a program that does X, Y, and Z, and we know that you all do that program. Could you please submit this evidence? So could you please share that piece of evidence so that we could submit it? Sometimes we've seen that people take the framework areas and kind of split them up amongst each other and say, like, Jenny is going to work on all government and community leadership, Madia is going to work on education, and Melissa is going to work on connected communities, and so forth. And that's kind of how it's broken up. Other places, the working group is just the government locality, and they bring in, they're the ones responsible for reaching out to the community members. And then we get to talk to some community members at the audit that takes place. But it really depends on the size of your, community. It depends on your working relationship with them. We have seen the evidence gathering as also a tool in itself to make connections and to reach out to people. So that's kind of how we've seen it done before as well. Let's see, what else can I? And then, so another question I'll take is if you were certified in the old system, what STAR rating does that equate to? So that is a great question. So like we mentioned, all of our current certified places are under the previous standard, which is 1.0. And we are, because we have just gone through the pilot and we haven't completed analysis with that yet, we can't give you a clear answer on that. But we are going to our best kind of look into it is that our current certified places would fall somewhere around a 3-star designation. Right. And then I'll pass off for more questions to Melissa.
Thanks. So we have this question around, would we certify a city that has a detention center in its locale? It's a great question. So it would really depend on what type of, it depends on what star designation you're seeking. There's the first indicator in the 1-star, I'll just pull out my standard actually to read it to you guys. It is in using 1 point, it's in safe communities, which is that local law enforcement agencies do not have policies in place where the primary purpose is to detain or deport immigrants, right? And so you could not have a policy where your local law enforcement agency is, asking immigration status, and for anybody that is not lawfully present to be sending them to the detention center. But because there is a difference in jurisdiction and who has oversight of that law, of that detention center, does not mean that we would not certify places who simply have a detention center in their locality. And then in the 3-star safe communities area, there's another indicator that could potentially also impact whether or not you're fully compliant with if there's a detention center. And again, it just kind of depends on how your city has approached this, but that it is that there's a policy in place to clarify the jurisdiction and separation between local law enforcement and federal immigration enforcement agencies. And so, we recognize that localities are also in states that, might have some state policies that are really difficult to work around. And so, Texas, for example, where they have to require that local law enforcement can ask about immigration status, but then there's a whole opportunity for other cities as or policies as well to really reflect the desire to have welcoming and inclusive and safe communities as well. So I hope that's answered that. Yeah, and this is a really great question from Myra. If we determine a lower or higher star, can the star change during the certification process? Absolutely. We would not assess for higher than a star than what you're seeking. So if you come in and you say, we want to be assessed for 3-star, we will only assess you for 3-star. So you wouldn't be able to go above than what you state that you want to be certified at. I don't encourage you to go for 5-star just because you want the assessment and that you're 3-star. Like, it requires so much work to go through the process that we really encourage places to be realistic about where they are, and then begin thinking about that process for recertification for that. But if we determine a lower star, so Madia talked about this a little bit in her process under when you get your report. You might have gone for the 3-star. You have to be compliant with all of the indicators for 1, for 2, and for 3 in order to achieve that designation. So you'll get your report back and you say, you know what, we didn't hit the mark for 3-star. The things that we have to do are going to take us a lot of time and a lot of work. That 6 months isn't enough. We're going to go ahead and stick with what we were compliant with, which is a 2-star. You could then decide, great, like we know what we need to work on for that 3-star designation. We've got our action plan, but we're going to go ahead and be certified at 2 stars. And so there is that opportunity to be certified at a lower star than what you initially went out to seek. The other piece that I want to mention here on this question is that you can you get certified at 2 stars and you say, you know what, like we're really geared up, we're ready to go. We want to restart this process in 2 years. We don't want to wait for our recertification. You can absolutely start sooner if you want to go for another star. You don't have to, wait for your recertification to begin that process.
I think those were all of the questions in the chat and in the Q&A. So I would just like to go ahead and just once again, if you have, here's how you can keep in touch with us, but also we are going to put in our emails into the chat as well. The certified welcoming email that I'm going to put into the chat first is the best kind of large, like catch-all questions. And then if you have specific questions for Melissa or I or Madia, it's just Madia@welcomingamerica.org or Melissa or Jenny. If a few of you message me about connecting you with regional managers, I'm going to make sure to do that after this call. And if there's anything else that we can answer, please feel free to reach out to us. Once again, this recording, the link to the video, and also the link to the quiz will be sent out in a follow-up email. Thank you so much for being a part of the first webinar in the series. Once again, our next one is May 31st and then June 14th. And if you can't attend those, please feel free to just reach out with any questions. Thank you again, and good luck on your journey with certified welcoming. And we look forward to working with you all. Thank you.